Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them, and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. So, Anita, Valentine's Day happened.
It did. How did it go for you?
It was chill. There was a puzzle in the living room in case my mom wanted to do it, and she did not.
So a puzzle in the living room sounds like the ultimate cat lady Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's pretty much true.
So Valentine's Day was kind of a non-issue for me too. I went to the grocery store and there was so many flowers everywhere. And my thoughts were, ha, suckers. I'm saving so much money.
That is one way to look at it.
Yeah, I wasn't sad about it. I was like, I don't really care. It's all stupid anyway. So I counted that as a win.
Did you think that way before Jason died?
Mostly I was just annoyed on Valentine's Day because Jason was terrible at giving gifts. And it's okay because I did not love flowers. I was not into all that kind of stuff. I do like chocolates. Yes to those. No to flowers.
Much like Liz Lemon from 30 Rock, I like sandwiches. I am happy with a bouquet of sandwiches.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad. I hope it wasn't terrible for our widows and widowers, but I have a feeling that it was a rough day for a lot of them because it's just another reminder that you're alone and your person's gone and you don't have your stupid Valentine here to treat you nicely.
So for those who commented in the Widow Wives Club and found support there, we're sorry that you're there, but so glad that you had people that get it.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting that sometimes people didn't celebrate Valentine's Day much when they were both alive, but now that their person is dead, it's taken on this like strange new meaning that it didn't even have before. And that is the stupid thing about grief, is that sometimes it doesn't even make any sense.
Most of the time,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
I have a story about that. So I have been just completely and utterly exhausted. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, I know that I've had a crazy year, but I should be doing better than I am right now. But I think for some reason, because my dad is the one that died and I've focused so much on the plight of the widow the last 4 years, I think I kind of discount myself in the death and grief portion of this, because I'm like, it is so sad for me and I'm sad, but my mom is the widow, and so I think I forget myself in that sometimes too. And so it's caught me off guard that I am experiencing things on the exact same timeline as I did after Scott died. For example, you know how Facebook and Instagram reminds you of, on this day 4 years ago, such and such happened? Well, there was this picture that I posted and the pug was sitting on me and Scotty was cuddling me and I just look wrecked, like completely wrecked. And I remember how I felt that day. And I was tired a lot during that time too. And that was the most tired I've ever been in my entire life. And that popped up yesterday, 4 years ago. It was like, oh yeah, okay. So it's about a month and a half after my dad died. And even though the picture actually wasn't from February, it was still from the month and a half period in my timeline after Scott had died that it showed up. So I don't know why it actually showed up yesterday. That's kind of fancy. But I was like, oh yeah, grief is exhausting and you are on a grief timeline. So I'm taking that as a reminder to be kind to myself, but I still am mad about it because I want to be productive and my brain's just swimming and I'm tired.
Is it swimming in soup?
Ew, no. Jello.
Okay. Non-firm Jello. Yum.
So it's like reminding me of early grief. Do you remember when you felt like that? Or maybe you still feel like that?
You know what helps me to remember that kind of thing is that I write every single night what happened during the day. And if I just look at myself right now, I think, man, I'm not doing that great. But then if I go back and read back then, I'm like, oh, actually, I'm doing excellent. It really helps me to have some perspective on how far I have come in my functioning, in my grief, in how the grief in how my grief affected and is affecting my body and things like that. So it's hard for me to remember some of those things because when you're not in them, you forget how awful they were.
I think early grief, and who knows, that's a different time period for each person. It could be 4 months. It could be the whole first year. It could be the first 2 years. I'm considering it like 1 to 6 months, like fresh, that kind of stuff. Or maybe even 1 to 3 months. Man, it just wrecks you. It sucks. So for all of you listening who are in the early times of your grief from the loss of your person, whew, I promise you won't be as tired eventually. But if you are tired and exhausted, it's normal. And if you're beating up on yourself, like I do a lot, you're not alone. And I'm going to say, don't beat up on yourself. And I need you to tell me, Mel, don't beat up on yourself.
Mel, don't beat up on yourself.
Anita, what advice would you offer your early grief self?
Oh my gosh. This is so hard because the advice I would offer myself is to be patient. It's such a hard concept, but I wanted so badly to know the things I needed to do to get myself out of where I was. You know, let's take the kids to therapy. I'm going to go to therapy. Let's read these books. Let's do all of these steps. Let's make a schedule for everybody. Let's do all of these things. And that is how we're going to get out of it. And there was no way to circumvent that early time. It was just like, do the best that you can every day, and eventually you are going to figure out what you need to do. And there's not really a way to rush it. And I really am impatient. And so that's the advice I would give to myself. Like, just hold on. It's going to get better. And be patient with yourself. Be patient with your kids. Be patient with your grief. It's going to last a really long time. So it's not like you can speed it up because there is no end point, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Those things you mentioned, getting yourself in therapy, getting your kids in therapy, having a schedule, those aren't the things that you shouldn't have been doing, right? It was just the way that you were thinking about them as if there was an end goal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or do you wish you didn't do therapy?
No, I just felt like I needed to do it right then, because if I didn't do it now, then it's going to slow down how we're coming out of this. And now I realize that therapy is something that we're going to go into and out of, and it's going to be a longer process than I anticipated. It wasn't just going to be like, let's do it all right now, and then in 4 months we can be done with all of this. You know, I was just trying to check so many boxes off to try and fix it. And no matter how many boxes you check off, and a lot of those things are positive, but also expecting them, for instance, you know, with the schedule and the kids being like, why aren't we getting it yet? You know, we should already have this down and it will help us. It's like, no, it's going to take a long time to figure out how we function now, and trying to rush it is only increasing your suffering. So you were maybe thinking of it like a race with different checkpoints and then an end goal. Yeah, and trying to get to that end goal quicker. And now it's like, there really isn't an end goal. And some of those things, like you said, like, it's not bad that we went to therapy, but feeling like we had to do it right then or else we were going to miss out and it would be all done and I would have failed my kids. It's like, no, this is going to be a long-term situation. And you know, they're going to go through periods where they probably don't need it. And then they're going to go through periods where their grief comes back, and same for me, you know, so that's my 2 cents.
Excellent. Well, I'm just tired with a brain full of Jell-O. So how was your week?
I'm tired. It's February. But it's been lovely weather, which is good and bad. We're going to regret that in the summer when we have no water, but it's been nice because for a couple of days I've been able to get outside in the sunshine and get some vitamin D, and I really, really need that. So that's been really good. I had to laugh because at school, my kids' school did the like candygrams to each other, you know, and my one son is looking through his candygrams and he's reading the message, and it's like, I like you because you're me. And I was like, what does that mean? And my son goes, oh, I sent it to myself. He's like, why wouldn't I send it to myself? I like myself. And then I was like, actually, that's really smart. You know, like, him. Yeah, he's like, I spent the 50 cents. I sent myself a piece of candy.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you should take care of yourself. You should love yourself and send yourself a piece of candy and not be embarrassed about that. And he was like, why would I be embarrassed about it? I'm awesome. So
good, man. He is doing it.
I know.
That is such good self-confidence and self-esteem. Keep it up.
He didn't wait for somebody else to tell them that they loved him. He was like, I'll just tell myself. Like, I don't care.
Like, duh. Common sense.
Duh. Anyway.
Oh, if most of the world could learn that lesson so young or ever.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, guys, if you missed our announcement last week, just know that we are excited to go to Camp Widow in Tampa, and that is March 18th through the 20th. We found out when we're presenting.
It's Friday afternoon. We're one of the first presenters. We would love to meet some of you. It's always so fun to put names and faces together. And oftentimes you don't look like what we think you're going to look like. So that's always fun.
Yeah. So go to campwidow.org. If you cannot afford the cost, they offer camperships. So send them an email if you want. And hopefully we'll see you there.
And if you want to come and hang out with us in the Widow Wives Club, it's on Facebook. It's a private group. It is an awesome and amazing group. We're almost up to 1,000 members, which I have to tell you guys, we turn down almost as many people as we accept because we actually read through your application. We make it sound like it's your portfolio.
Like a job.
Yeah. But we read through the information that you send us and we make sure that everybody belongs there. So if you don't submit all that information, you're going to get denied. And then you're maybe going to be mad at us, but try again.
Sometimes it just means you didn't check the box that say you agree to the rules. So this is not about you or your self-worth or how much a widow you are. You just have to be a widow. So
yes.
Make sure you just like get all of your boxes checked, literally. And you know what? It makes me hungry because we've had some funny conversations this week about food.
Totally. Me too. So somebody posted a recipe for funeral potatoes. And where we live, it is an actual thing. There is something, they're called funeral potatoes. They're delicious and they're called funeral potatoes. And so we had this big conversation about what in the world are these? Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Yep. And here in Utah, where we are currently, you have funeral potatoes at all sorts of events, not just funerals.
Yes, but they're still called funeral potatoes.
I know.
Always with ham.
So funny.
And they're delicious, you guys. I'm going to make them tomorrow.
But are you going to put Doritos on the top like that recipe?
I don't think so.
Oh, come on, try it. Put it on the corner.
Okay, I'll give it a whirl. If you would like to keep the podcast going, will you guys check out our Patreon? It's patreon.com/WWDN. It's just a way for people to support content creators and like the podcast that you're listening to now.
If you are interested in joining our Patreon, it's patreon.com/WWDN. One of the perks that you get at the level of Widow Bestie and up is a shout out in episode.
We're changing things up. We're going to go backwards today. So for our first Patreon, our Widow Bestie, Anna Tracy,
Christina Scambato,
Christine Anderson,
Cindy Raynaud,
Mindy Holmgren, thanks for the soup,
Don Barber,
Debbie Fells,
Deborah Westwood,
Diana Becker,
Emily Toledo,
Eric Vandermeulen, welcome.
Aaron Posick,
Gabe Lozano,
Gia Benoit,
Gina Haas,
Ian Sini,
Ilianabel Ruiz,
Jackie the Coil,
Jane, my mom,
Jenny Armstrong, welcome,
Jenny Barrow,
Jocelyn Milo,
Julie Stevenson,
Karina Jacobo,
Katie Radcliffe,
Kara Scara,
Laura Keeley,
Lindsay Konopka,
Lori Farrington,
Marjorie Lewis,
Mary McGowan,
Megan Montague,
Melissa Bowers,
Peter Rukavina,
Becky Zyba,
Sarah the Kennedy,
Stacy Saywert,
Sunshine Haven,
Tammy Terravest,
Tara Wallace,
Val, the cool kid Packer,
Bet Wendy,
Amy Hartman Martell,
Amy Neal,
Amy Sapp,
Ashley Hahn,
Brittany Pedro,
Chris Steffen,
Christina Shiflett,
Danielle Catterberg,
Not a Debbie Downer,
Dennis Brazo,
Heidi Hayward,
Jenny Taylor,
Jennifer Beal,
Jennifer Brown,
Jennifer Hassel,
Jenny Wang,
Kathy Murray,
Kelly Ford,
Kirsten Stromberg Clausen,
Laura Bradbury,
Lauren Old,
Leslie Webb,
Auntie Marie Hoffman,
MK Anderson,
Missy Schubert,
Rachel Barbosa,
woo, 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 woo. Sarah Morris,
the Sylvia Shore, who is on her first trip post-loss. You got this, Mom!
Taylor Snyder,
Karen Cornejo,
Vicky Spitt,
Constance Dahlbeck,
David Kelly,
Don Satterwhite,
Gail Paxton,
Ivan the Misner,
Kat, the cat,
Krista Waite,
Sam Finlayson, and finally we have our secret dead husband, and to her we say, oh, we're halfway there. Oh, living like a widow.
That doesn't even rhyme.
I know, it didn't make any sense.
All right, we love you guys. Thank you so much for those who have joined our Patreon. It helps us to be able to create the podcast. A lot of work goes into it. We have costs associated with it. If you are not able to support us this way, but would like to, please consider buying us some tacos at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
And if you guys can't do either of those things, we would love if you would just give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It helps people find the podcast. It moves it up in the listings. So when somebody searches widow, we want to come up so we can help them. So if you would consider doing any of those three things, we would super duper appreciate it.
All right, let's get to it, Anita.
Let's just take a nap instead.
Okay, let's take a nap while we listen to our interview. Here we go.
Excellent. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
We're two young widows. We're helping you trying to figure out widow
We
do.
now. This episode is sponsored by the Misner Family Foundation in memory of Elisabeth Misner.
I am from Texas, born and raised.
Welcome, Kris.
Where in Texas are you coming from?
Well, I grew up in Dallas and now I'm in the suburbs and I live in Argyle, Texas.
That sounds fancy.
Yeah, it's kind of fancy. 40 minutes from like DFW, kind of northwest of there.
So for you who are not on our Zoom call with us, behind Kris, she has got some shelves that are full of colors. And it kind of looks like the home edit. And it's paint. Because Kris, tell us about your painting.
Well, actually, I'm in the middle of doing some shows. I do a lot of commission work. I do a ton of dogs, either dogs living or memorial dogs. Yes.
Wow, how long have you been a painter?
I started at 40. And if you ask my mother, she'll tell you I could not even draw a stick figure. But I was like, I'm going to learn how to do this. And I started painting really small and kind of doing gifty things. And then people were like, oh, can you make me one? Then I kind of dabbled a little bit in furniture and would buy them like at thrift stores and I'd redo them. So now all my kids have like used furniture that I've redone. That's not my favorite thing to do. But right now I'm doing Christmas ornaments and I sell them at craft fairs in the area. And I do pretty well. It pays for Christmas and a little extra, so that's kind of fun. And then I also do homes. Like if you move into a new home, I'll do the front of the home and then put the, name of the family or the year they moved in or something like that.
I was thinking you were painting their home.
No.
It's like, you need more paint, lady.
I could do that. I don't want to.
I understand now. What kind of paint is it? Is it acrylic or oil or?
Yeah, it's acrylic. Yeah, because I get it everywhere and it's easy to clean up. I've always got something on my clothes so this is my happy place. This is where I've spent a lot of time. If you saw the other wall, you'd be blown away. It's just like one big kind of magnetic board and it's my whole life in pictures on the other side. So it makes me it's my happy room. I spend most of my days in here. So, and I would show you, but if I unplug my computer, you'll be gone. I need to.
Okay, we'll do it later.
Yeah.
So Kris, you're an artist. And you are also
a widow.
Dun dun dun.
Ooh. Well, cheer? I don't know.
The coolest people are widows, and I just don't know how to feel about that. I mean, I'm glad we get to meet you. Like, obviously, Kris is so fun. You can tell. How did you become a widow?
Well, it's been a year, so I just passed my year mark. I'd actually think I even I found you guys in January, and I started listening while I was painting. And I'm painting and I'm crying. I'm listening to people's stories, and to me, it was very therapeutic because it was nice to know that there was other people out there. But my story is my husband, wonderful man. That's what we all say, right? But I had the best. He was killed in a motorcycle accident about 2 miles from our house. And so I'll back up a little bit. We have 2 adult children. My son's 25, my daughter's 27. So they're out of college, kind of have their careers going and stuff. So my husband and I built this house. We lived in here for about 8 months. This was this is where we were going to land. So we paid off all our bills. We paid the kids' college funds off with our old house. I mean, clean slate, not that we were in debt, but you know what I'm saying? Now we had money to go have fun with. The kids were gone. My granddaughters were born. I have twin granddaughters there too. And they're identical girls. And I'm so crazy about them. So anyway, we moved so that we could be a little bit closer because my daughter at the time was about 3 hours away and we could go run on the weekends. And my husband was a president of a motorcycle, I want to say it right, club. Where they do a lot of charity work. And you're going to love this, Mel, they were doing what's called a ride called Hogs for Paws. And so they pick a charity that shelter. This year they did lab rescue. Last year, I can't remember which one they were doing. And my nephew had come in town and he was going to ride with him. My nephew's bike broke down. So my husband, about 3:00, it was a Friday, he came home and he said, babe, I'm going to run and go pick up the rest of the donations, door prizes, restaurants give them, all kinds of goodies. And I'm going to pick up the rest of those and I'm going to run by my buddy Ray's house. And he was our best friend and our neighbor before we moved over here, and see if I can borrow his bike, and I'll ride his bike and let Nick ride my bike for the ride the next day. It was the next morning. And he went by Ray's and texted me, said, heading home. It was about almost 6:00 on a Friday night. And we lived kind of in a congested area. And he was driving down like a mile from our old house. And he had his helmet on, his boots. I mean, he was a very, very, very safe rider. And was riding down, and a 78-year-old man took a left-hand turn at a yellow blinking arrow. And my husband tried to lay the bike down because he saw him, and he was trying, I think what he was trying to do, because I know my husband was trying not to hit the passengers. He couldn't lay it down fast enough. He flew 40 feet in the air and landed on the concrete. His heart stopped. Later I learned, but that's a whole story. So anyway, so they care flighted him to a hospital. His heart stopped again when he got to the hospital, got into surgery. Every bone in his body was broken. Everyone. So there wasn't a part of his body. The ribs were broken. His femur came out of his thigh. I mean, they were concerned about that. His brain was so swollen, and he had everything on. And the police, after the fact, had told me that they investigated. They wanted to make sure, that he wasn't speeding and, whatnot. And they just said he did everything right. Then to come find out, and we knew a lot of people in that community. It's a big community, but we lived there 18 years. So he died kind of by our old house. And or he didn't die there. He got hit there, excuse me. So somebody had a dash cam and it recorded the whole thing. I never saw it. I didn't want to see it, but my kids saw it. And that is something that they will have to live with forever. But the police watched it from start to finish. And they were like, yep, he wasn't speeding, nothing. He was 76 and a 78-year-old girlfriend were there. And they weren't even from around here. I think they were going to visit a friend. And I don't know if he pulled out. He had to have seen him. My husband was on the road. There was nothing blocking. I don't know if he panicked and stopped in the middle of the road, like thinking, how you do, some people you kind of stop, or if he was just like, I can beat him, and tried to turn it. And they did investigations on the gentleman to make sure that, was he supposed to be wearing glasses, so forth and so on. So that's kind of the beginning of this scenario of what we went through. So there's so much tragedy after that.
Wait, there's more? Oh, gosh.
I was just going to say that dash cam video seems like it would be a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it's like you have answers, or some of the answers, whereas a lot of people just don't know what happened and just have to live with that. But then it's like you said, you don't really want to see your husband's, that accident. It would be really horrible, but it's also kind of nice that you have that. So you have some answers, even though they're all terrible. It's not like you want those answers.
Exactly. Well, let me tell you the good thing that came out of the dash cam, in hindsight, So I was told that there was a truck coming next to wherever the car was with the dash cam, and it hit the brakes. It saw the accident. 4 doors flew open and 4 men raced to the side. And they didn't know him, and they held off the traffic until the police could get there. And we knew so many people over there, and it was not such big news. It's not like it made the news or anything, but it made the rounds in media, social media and stuff. And my neighbor's sister saw the whole thing. she couldn't eat for 3 days. And it took us a couple days. It took her a couple days to realize that. She's like, that's my neighbor behind me that happened to, because we were new and there was COVID going on. And so we hadn't gotten to meet a lot of neighbors, but the ones around us we knew. And it kind of dawned on her, oh my gosh, you saw that. So I will tell you, it must have been pretty bad.
I'm just wondering if you've connected with any of those people who tried to help him.
We got a lot of messages. Somebody held his hand while the ambulance, some lady. So it was right at a busy intersection with some shopping strips, kind of a 4-corner thing. And people were coming out of their businesses, and some lady just ran over there. And I don't know if by then they had blocked it or it was enough blocked off that she raced over there, but she knew he wasn't going to make it. That it was really bad, and she held his hand. So, and I'm telling you, he was the best guy. We got to talk. I was talking to my son last night, and I said, I realize I'm a really complex person. And I was telling my son, you're a complex person. And I said, but your dad, he wasn't. And he goes, no, Dad was a golden retriever. He just, all you have to do is kiss his nose and pet him and give him a little water. And he was happy with life. He was happy to see you.
So are you a border collie?
I could be German Shepherd, a pit bull, or any of those.
You're a Basenji.
I don't know breeds very well.
I don't even know what that is.
I could be a Cocker Spaniel, that's like friendly, but don't get near my food. I don't know.
Yeah, a Cocker Spaniel bit my face, you guys.
Well, I could bite your face if I had a reason to.
I'm not going to get near you now, Kris Morgan from Texas.
Don't push me in a corner.
So your kids saw the video. Did they want to do that for just to identify him, or why did they choose to watch that?
They're in their 20s. I think they wanted to have closure and see what happened to their dad. I think my son, he's the baby. I think he has struggled with it the most. And I do think a little bit of I would say a lot of their trauma is because they saw the video. And they said, Mom, if you want to see, I'm like, I don't. I can't unsee that. And this is just going to be hard enough for me as it is. So, yeah. So it was a blessing and a curse.
Obviously, that's very, very dramatic. Have they had any sort of therapy to deal with that, to try to help process those memories?
The therapy that they have is called Lexapro and Zoloft.
Okay, my therapy is called Effexor and Anita.
Moving forward to the next part of it, we had that ice Armageddon here in Texas in February.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he died in October. His birthday was on Thanksgiving. That was fun. Our 28th anniversary was December 19th. Then we had Christmas. Then we had January. Then we had February. We had the ice Armageddon. And my son shows up the first day with his dog, his suitcase, and his car. And he's like, I'm moving in, my apartment flooded. And
oh gosh.
Yeah, everything. Like, he was on the 3rd floor, so the sprinkler system was right above him. His whole ceiling collapsed because it froze over and then it burst. And so they called the fire department. The fire department says, you guys cannot live here. You better find a place to go. So he moved in with me for 3 months. Yes, that was fun. And actually, it was very therapeutic. I was kind of dreading it because, when your adult kids come back, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, and I was still trying to grieve, but it ended up being really nice for both of us. And then sadly, my daughter decided to file for divorce, and she moved back here with the twins and had to get a job and a house. And there's been a lot going on last year. So it's that about killed me. So trying to help her. So yes.
Did you not request some time to not have all of this drama? I mean, you should have put in your request and said can we just chill out for this year? I'm dealing with this.
No.
You
go big.
Didn't fill out the proper forms.
This is Texas. It's go big or go home,
Yeah.
So, so that was really stressful. But I will tell you, in trying to move forward, I've been doing a lot of individual therapy. I've listened to your podcasts, which have been a lifesaver to me. So shout out.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, they're awesome. And I feel like I turned a corner about, for me, and I know everybody's grieving is different. I'll always grieve. We'll always grieve. And we'll always be widows, no matter, where we go. In Labor Day. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was prayer. It was about the month before his anniversary. I did a lot of devotionals. I've been seeing a therapist. I've tried being on antidepressants. I just don't, the side effects are worse than what I'm trying to treat. So, but I don't know. I think that for me, and everybody's different. So but I'm throwing it out there that for me, I just wanted to take a step forward, and I was having a problem getting there. And I finally told my therapist, give me the tools to get across the river so I can be with everybody else. I'm tired of being on this island alone. And so she was really good about making some suggestions. And so I started doing those things, and just a lot of prayer for me,
What are some of the suggestions that your therapist offered you?
She wanted me to go to the group. There's that grief groups that you can go to. So I said, okay, I'm in for that. She suggested a couple of books, like how to move forward. So I was stuck in this just deep hole, and just getting out of bed, as you well know, was just so difficult. But she suggested, she gave me all the tools, books, and I can't remember which ones they were.
Of course not.
Because widow brain, right? You're a sudden death widow,
Yes.
so your brain is probably skewampus like
PTSD
ours.
completely. And so, yeah, and books, go to this, and so start journaling. I'm not a writer. It's not going to happen. I'm a painter, not a writer. And go to individual counseling, go with your friends, even if you don't want to. So I didn't do all 5 of them, but I did start the grief group counseling. I did do some reading. I started reaching out to my friends. I was telling people, I just need a grief break. I need, I want to go somewhere where I don't talk about it. Let's talk about your kids and what's going on in your life, so that my brain can take a break from being sad 24/7. So, and it did help. And I could see little steps. And what I was doing is I was taking little tiny steps forward, but not letting something bad push me all the way back. And that's what I was doing before. I was taking little steps, but then, Ice Armageddon hit Texas. And it was just, I felt like I was right back to the day that he died, So I didn't feel like I was moving forward, And I say moving forward, not moving on, because we never move on from this,
I love the imagery that you created when you said that you didn't want to be stuck on an island anymore, and that you wanted to cross the river and be with people again. I think that resonates with a lot of people. You feel very isolated, and you can feel isolated even in a group of people. You can be surrounded by people and just feel like you are alone. And I'm proud of you for kind of recognizing that and trying to figure your way out of that. Because sometimes I feel like we don't know that's, we don't know what to do about that. We don't know how to ask for help in that. And it's just a hard place to be in.
Well, and I tell my friends to build on that. I tell my friends now, when the grief hits us, we all just want everybody at arm's length. I don't know what you can do for me. Stop asking, stop pressuring me to go do dinner. I don't want to do dinner. I just want to sit home tonight and cry. Or I just want to sit home tonight and watch Friends and just laugh for 10 minutes, or The Office or Everybody Loves Raymond. Those were kind of my go-tos. And I had them recording so I could get that grief break. But then if I wanted to cry, I could cry, and I didn't have to apologize for it or anything like that. So, but I got tired of being on that island. I got tired of being sad. Being sad was wearing me down. And so to build on that, I would tell people, I feel like I'm on one side of the river and everybody else is on the other side of the river. And I don't know how to get to them. Do I build a bridge? Do I get a boat? Do I swim? Do I wade through the water? I don't know how to get there. And so I think I was trying to put pebbles in the water, but every time I did, the apartment flooded. Here comes one kid, and then I felt like I was starting all over again and putting pebbles in there. But what I needed to do was put bigger rocks in there. So when those things hit, it didn't wash away everything that I had done. And that's what I was trying to get to my therapist, is I just need the tools to get those big rocks in the river so that I can cross over and get to the people who have been waiting a year to see me and love me and hug me and talk to me, or talk about it or not talk about it, And my husband, the gift he left me, we had 18 years. We had tons of friends that, we'd made over 28 years of marriage. He left me the best people in the whole world, and I had to come to the realization that he left me, he died, damn him. And I'm going to punch him when I get to heaven. I haven't decided whether I'm going to punch him and then hug him forever, or if I'm going to hug him forever and then stand back and punch him.
Cocker spaniel.
Well, if you want, Jason is on duty for kicking people in the shins till we get there. So if you want Jason to kick him,
anytime,
Anita will put him on the assignment.
His list is long for the shin kicking.
Yes, put me on the list. I'm a patient woman.
Now, how many years were you painting before your husband died? Because you said you painted at 40, but you don't look very old to me, so I don't know how many years that is.
Are you asking me how old I am, Mel, without asking me how old I am? I'm 56. I was 55.
No, you're not. You're like 36. You had your children when you were like 8.
27 was my first. 28. I was 28 when I had my first one, and 30 when I had my second one. Yeah. So I just turned 56.
Okay. So you've been painting for about 16 years or so. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
My question is to you, as somebody who has had the artistic element in your life pre-death of a spouse, because a lot of people, they find art after, and that's a really therapeutic thing. Where you've been in that world for a while, how was that for you when he died? Did you have to take a break from painting? Does it still help you?
It was definitely helpful, definitely, because I love music, all kinds of music. I mean, Barry White to, Anita Baker. I love R&B. I love, I'm a big country listener because my husband and I were big country and Western dancers. And yeah. And
so the guy that I toured with for years, Colin Ray.
Oh, yes, I do. So I listen to all kinds of music. So that was always therapeutic. To me, music is its kind of own language. And I love that music says words that it articulates words that people feel but don't know how to say. So I've got 700 songs on my Spotify. I probably know every word to every song. But that was very therapeutic for me, because all of a sudden you kind of find these deeper meanings in songs, but I was already there. And then I could paint and I could just cry. The hardest part about painting was really being inspired. I had a hard time being inspired, like finding something that would inspire me, because I was in such a low place. But once I found something and kind of got started, and my girlfriends were great. They're like, hey, I need a dog for my friend's dog died. Could you paint a memorial picture, And that was really therapeutic for me. So yeah, I would say it was really therapeutic. It was a lot of alone time that I really needed. The inspiration was hard to come by because you're just such in this dark place. Yeah, but you got to stick with it.
Did the dog painting start after he died, or were you doing that before?
I was always doing that before. I have a little bit of a following. I have a website. And so I have a lot of clients that come back to me, because they'll either have a friend that sees theirs, or they'll think of it as a gift. It's about usually an 8x8. So if people have dogs, they can kind of do a gallery wall, or, they can put it in a small space. But I can do big ones. I do big ones. I do any animals. I do cats. I've done goldfish. I mean, yeah.
Goldfish? That's awesome. Anita needs one for some goldfish because she's killed several.
Anita.
I have nothing to say for myself. I didn't mean to kill them. I just promised my son that I would feed them, and then I forgot. And then
she got banned from the pet store from buying goldfish.
I mean, I don't know many people that can keep goldfish alive.
Thank you.
I don't. My daughter did in college for 3 years, and we kept getting the tank bigger and bigger because I think she had 3, and the fish kept getting bigger and bigger. That is so weird. She came back, she had them and had somebody feeding them like at Christmas break or something. She came back and they were from like an inch long to like 2.5 inches long, like within 2.5 weeks.
Whoa.
It was really weird. Yeah, so the bigger
maybe they were
the
radioactive.
bigger they get. It's really weird, but she kept them alive for 3 years in college. I was very impressed.
We've had some goldfish last for a long time, and we've had some goldfish last for no time at all. A little of both. But now I want a goldfish painting because why not?
Why not?
I think that would be the safest for you.
Exactly. And I can jewel it out for you. Some dogs have collars that have jewels on them. And so I can kind of do a little bit of anything. I'm always delving into something new and I love a challenge. So goldfish I could do.
I love that. Hey, Kris, so in your first year of widowhood, what has surprised you about being a widow that you didn't know before?
I was thinking about that the other day, and it happened to me at the craft fair that I just did last Saturday, is that I find myself trying to make other people not feel awkward. When you see somebody, that they know that he died. Maybe it's an acquaintance. Again, we lived in a community for 18 years, so I run into the kids' teachers from elementary school and things like that. And walk, they hug you, and the first thing they said, "Oh my gosh, your granddaughters are so cute." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I know that." And then it's kind of that awkward pause, and I'll say, I just say, I lost Ken, and they're like, "Yeah." And I just try and put it out there because I feel like they want to say something, but they don't want to upset me, and so I feel like I'm constantly asking, people how they're doing. Well, how are you doing with the loss of Ken? Seriously, my financial planner was one of our best friends. When I go talk to him and we bring up his name, he gets teary-eyed. My family adored him. And so it's just, and again, I just find that awkward. I just didn't expect that. I didn't expect that I was going to have to kind of dance around other people's feelings and be mindful, even though I'm in grief. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we've definitely felt that. I know for me, it just took so much energy, and I was able to do that for a few months after Scott died. And then it was like my immune system crashed and I couldn't do it anymore. I don't know if it's like this for you because you seem to have a lot more energy than I do, but I kind of have stopped caring if they feel awkward, and I'm just going to let them work out their feelings, but also try to be cognizant of it too if I do have the energy. But I'm a jerk, so there's that.
No, you're not. You're not even close. You're so sensitive to people, and you always seem to say the right thing in their time of struggle, at least on a podcast. I've noticed that.
Kris, you mentioned that you did individual therapy, and then you did like a group grief counseling type therapy. Can you tell us how those benefited you differently than one another? What aspects of both of those were helpful for you?
My individual therapist, I've never met her in person because of COVID. Let me tell you first, I wear a bracelet because I don't do tattoos. I don't know if you can see it. That's for my husband. I have 5 on this hand for people that have died within the last year, 3 from COVID and 1 was an overdose. So I don't do tattoos. So these are kind of my memorials to the people that I've lost. And 1 was a massive heart attack, 3 were COVID, another 1 was an overdose. So during COVID. So, I mean, it's just been a lot. So in answer to your question, about May, I thought I was just going to lose it. I went to bed going, Lord, just take me, just take me. But then I have that pull of, being the only surviving parent, So anyway, to answer your question, the individual therapy helped me the most. Because I get on there and she'll either let me vomit or, I think the first, I'm not vomit, you know what I mean? Vomit out my feelings. So yes. She would get on there, the first 5 times I met with her, and I was just mad and angry and hurt and crying and kind of telling her my story. And I was like, this isn't really working, this isn't really, but what I realized is she was kind of walking me through grief. And so she was letting me take that journey. And she was suggested by my girlfriend who lost her son 3 months after I lost my husband to the overdose. And so she quit going. She's like, I just don't think she's helping me. She doesn't know what I've been through. And I said, well, she doesn't know what I've been through, but I have seen the benefits of walking through it. And I think it hit me when I said I'm ready to get across on the other side of the river.
I would like to speak to that because I think it's a really common experience that people are dissatisfied with therapy. I mean, part of it could be that it's not a good fit for them. Part of it could be that the therapist isn't prepared to help them. Part of it could be that, it's just not working out. But I think that a lot of people are not aware that they can be in control of their therapy, because therapists are trained to be neutral and to get stuff out of you and to not push you if you're not ready to be pushed. And it's a relationship that can take a really long time and a lot of sessions for them to understand how their client is going to respond to certain things. And so I love when you mentioned that you said, I'm ready to start going across the river. Give me some tools. And for anybody that's in therapy right now that maybe feels like they're stuck, ask your therapist for some tools like that, because they should be ready and waiting to give you those, but it could be that they're keeping a neutral situation and just letting you like word vomit for a while. And I've noticed that too, like with my therapist. She's awesome. She's also a widow. And we have a lot of good conversations, and sometimes they're not about anything like widowhood related, but if I do get into a spot where I'm like, okay, this is kind of stressful or whatever, she'll be like, okay, well, are you wanting to sit with this? Like, what do you think is next? And I have to ask her, hey, I would like to move through this. Like, what should I do? What do you suggest that I do? So people in therapy, ask your therapist and see without giving up quickly, because it is very beneficial for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, and they don't know you, when you first start. And so they're trying to feel out your personality. They're also letting you walk through it. And sometimes I think they're just waiting for you to say, and some people just don't know how to say that. But it finally dawned on me, I'm like, I need tools. I'm ready. I want to get to the other side. I'm worn out from this year and being exhausted, and how I need the tools to move forward. Now, comparing that individual therapy, and here to me is the big difference. Individual therapy is obviously the one-on-one therapy that you get, and it's all about you and your feelings. Group therapy, so most therapists are not going to have had our experiences. I think you're really rare to find a therapist that is also a widow, but I like my therapist, and I get on and I go, hey, your favorite client's here. You should be paying me for, and she's just like, and she always agrees with me. Yeah, you're my favorite. She lies really well. But anyway, and we laugh, and she'll cry with me. I'll look on the Zoom call like we're on now, and her eyes are all teared up. So I know that she feels my pain and what I'm going through. And that means a lot to me, because she's really listening and stuff. But group therapy, when you go to group, those people are experiencing what we've experienced. Most of them are widows. Some of them, they lost their dad, or they lost a sister or whatnot, but there are a lot of widows in the group. I didn't continue with my group therapy because most of the people in there were at the beginning of their loss. And every time I went, it just dragged me back to that place, and I just didn't want to be there. And you know what I'm saying? I think it would have been more beneficial early on for me had I gone, but emotionally, I was a little bit more out of the hole than most of them, because I was working my way out, and it just made me relive it and be sad. And I was just further along than most of those people. And it doesn't matter, and everybody's time frame is different, but it was just a beating, because I had to drive there, and then I had to just be sad, and then I had to come home, be sad. And, I'm sad all the time. Like, I just didn't feel like I wanted to be sad anymore. And they needed to be sad. And I needed that 4 months after he died. That's where I was living in that, but I wasn't ready to just go back into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So my kids go to a grief group for kids, and the parents meet at the same time. And we went last night. And actually, I was thinking about this because in the beginning stages, I just went there, and it felt comforting to me because it was the only place that I felt like I could be really honest about the parenting struggles I was having, and everybody would just nod their heads. And I was desperate at that point in time. And last night, the people on the other side of the room, we've got a new group of people, and many of them are newly widowed or widowered. And I find myself in the position now of remembering those days and them asking me questions. And so it's like my role in that group has changed from somebody who is desperate to somebody who is more experienced and able to almost give back to the group. And it was interesting that I noticed that shift, because it didn't happen until the group facilitator kept like looking at me and saying, what do you think about that question? Or what do what are the people who are more experienced? Which is also funny that I'm experienced, but compared to somebody who's 3 or 4 months out, I'm in a whole different place than I was then. So, and I can understand not wanting to be pulled, there's different feelings that go with that.
Well, and like you said, you go because you have your children there and stuff like that. But it just felt so heavy to me. And I was just coming out of that heavy place. Like I said, I think it would have been beneficial had I started earlier. And trust me, I had a lot of people going, maybe group therapy would be good. And I just was like, I don't want to share it. I'm not ready to. It just hurts to talk about it. But I think had I gone earlier, and I think that maybe had I stuck with it, I could turn it around, not turn around, but I could be on the other side helping those people. But I just felt like it was a very small group. So I just felt like everybody was really early on, and they just needed to just be there and be sad.
And yeah, there's a definite distinction between early fresh grief and then when you've had a couple more steps ahead. I noticed that even in the early part of my grief journey with an online group that I was in. And at the very, very beginning, it was really, really helpful because I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Okay, cool. And I'm not a big participator. I lurk a lot. I mean, in ours, because we run it, I participate because I'm like the boss of it.
She's a lurker.
I'm a creeper, you guys. I'm a widow creeper. I like to observe a lot, I guess, would be a more appropriate way to put that. But I remember there was a definite time where I was like, I opened up the group on Facebook and I was like, I can't do this because I noticed that I had changed. Because at first I was like, oh my gosh, all these people do is complain about this and that. And then I was like, well, duh, that's what it's for. And like, you should complain because that's what you're feeling. And so then I thought, oh, maybe this just is showing me that I'm now, instead of a place of this 100% at all times sucks, maybe I'm in a little bit more of a lesser percentage of the suck. And so it was a sign for me to really kind of pay attention to what I was responding to and what I wasn't responding to. So yeah, I think that's valid. And I think everybody that goes through widowhood will find that at some time. And it's easy to marinate in your grief so much that you are not even wanting to take a step into the river at all.
Right. And that's okay. That's okay. But, it might take some people 5 years, 10 years. And as the last podcast, I think I listened to like yesterday, I think it was the tapping, and there's a lot of people that carry, that really live in that grief for 4 or 5 years and just, like you said, don't know how to move forward, don't want to. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just not my personality. I finally realized one day he's not coming back. He's not going to magically walk through my back door. As much as I wanted, as much as we all wanted, he's not coming back. He died, I didn't. And the hardest part for me, and I'm not going to cry, is that I thought I would live my whole life with him. We made the plans to do that. I mean, we had just paid off college tuition, 4 years, universities. I mean, it wasn't cheap. We finally got that. And it was time for us to have fun because I got pregnant with my daughter 5 months after we married. And then I had my son 2 years later after that. So we didn't know a marriage without children. you know? And so this was like our time. And oh my gosh, we had so much fun. I love to travel with him. I'm telling you, who didn't like a golden retriever, right? He lived in the moment. If he didn't know you, he would find something in common with you. He always made you feel like you were the only person in the room. And I can't tell you how many of his friends came out and said, God, he was my best buddy. And I was like, yeah, I've heard that about 20 times. That's how he made people feel, you know? And he was a big golf. So he was a motorcycle rider and he was a huge golfer. And those worlds don't collide a lot. So he could, you know, put on his golf attire and go to a nice country club. And then he could get on his Harley, you know, and put on all his gear, you know. It was really funny. And he was just finishing his sleeve tattoo.
Please tell me he wore plaid pants to golf. Please tell me he wore ridiculous.
No, if I would have let him, he would. But I'm like, oh, no, you're not leaving the house.
Kris, you said something before we started recording that I just want to bring up. We were talking about how we're all in this widowhood boat together and we never would have asked to be here. But if it meant that you sharing your story would touch or help one person, then that's something that's good that can come from it. And I just want to say it's interesting that you make the image of crossing the river, because when Scott died, I felt like I was looking across a river at like a burning city. And I would say to people, they're like, I don't know what to say. And I go, I know, I don't either. Like, and I would say, we are on the same side of the river watching this city burn, and none of us know what to say. And so I thought it was fascinating that you brought up the analogy of the river, because in the last year after I got back from New York, I just went super reclusive. And it's been a struggle for me to try and like slowly kind of climb out of that, even though it's been almost 4 years since the death. Like there have been, you know, other losses and life circumstances. And if it helps nobody else, I just want you to know that you sharing your story and talking about the river and the visual of the like one rock and one pebble has helped me. And so now when I am not wanting to go do something, I'm going to think of you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So, Kris, do you feel like you have successfully crossed the river, or do you feel like you are crossing the river?
I think that I'm crossing it.
But you feel like you're doing pretty well and that your stepping stones or your boulders are staying in place better than they were before.
Yes, I'm using bigger rocks, so it's taking me a little more time. But as I'm finding that as things come up, they're not quite as devastating and they don't wash away what I've built so far. So it's a long process, you know, and I'm a little girl, so, you know, I can only lift so much weight pushing it across the river. But I see my friends and I see life, and, you know, my life without my husband, let's just say my life is my journey. And I thought he would be my journey throughout my life, but I realized he's only part of my journey. So I have a second half, and I don't know what that looks like, and it scares the crap out of me. But there's more to my story, I guess is what I'm saying. And I can sit here and not live my life, which he would hate. He would hate that for me. He would want me to move on, you know? So there's more to my life journey. I just wish he could have ridden the whole ride with me. That was the plan. It was your plan. It didn't happen that way. So there's a journey out there that I'm supposed to take, and I don't know what that looks like, but I'm a little bit more hopeful that I'm not going to be stuck and I can move on in whatever capacity that looks like. Whether I remarry, date. Oh God, I'm gonna be careful to say this. I miss intimacy, whether it's just holding hands or snuggling. And my granddaughters give me a little bit of snuggle. I just miss that human touch. And people don't really think like, I haven't been kissed on lips by a man in over a year. You know, I don't really have the desire to necessarily go out and kiss men, but I miss that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anita gets her intimacy from the mammogram machine.
Don't we all? Yeah. There is something about that I mean, I just miss him walking in the door and just kissing me on the head. You know, bye babe, I'm going to, you know, run to the store or whatnot. And those are things that people that aren't widows don't get, you know. and they take it for granted. I took it for granted. Come on, let's be real. We're just, getting through another day. But, the weirdest thing was I saw him is he pulled up. I was out walking and he pulled up the last time I saw him alive. And he stopped and said, "Hey, babe, I'm going to go do this." We never, ever left without giving each other a kiss. But his motorcycle he was on a motorcycle. It was hot. He had his helmet on, his sunglasses. I was kind of sweaty from working out, and I didn't kiss him. And I said, "Okay, I'll see you in about an hour or two." And he drove off, and I took 10 steps forward, and I swear I'm not making this up. And I thought, I didn't get my kiss. And I was like, "Oh, Kris, don't be silly. He's going to be home in an hour." Looking back, and then you go through the whole thing. Well, had I kissed him, that might have been the 2 seconds that car, you play those games. And yeah, you can't do that. And I lived in that for a long time, but, I just had to come to the realization that it was just out of my control, So yeah, there's a lot to unpack as a widow, and things that people don't think about.
I think a lot of people think about the big days, the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries, and yes, those are hard, but those are the big boulders in your life, and then it's filled with millions of pieces of sand,
Exactly.
All of the looks and the conversations and the, small babes and honeys and I love yous and the, just the day-to-day that's also gone. That is like a constant source of pain.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are. And I don't know that, I think over time it might ease a little bit. But I get up every morning, I still think about it. I'm finding that some of my memories, I can now start to laugh at, things he would have said or things like that. So that makes me feel hopeful that I don't cry about that. The memories are funny, and I'll watch a TV show and I'll think, oh, he would have said this, about, that character or whatnot, or he wouldn't have even said it. We would have just looked at each other and laughed, and I would have known exactly what he was thinking. Those are the things that people don't realize, when they're not widows, that you miss. And there's no school for that. There's no widow school. Hey, maybe we should start a widow school.
I think you could be the teacher because you can give out all the tools.
I have the tools. Exactly. And then I could do art therapy. Will you play the piano behind me?
Yes.
And bring your dogs. Oh, and then let's throw Anita's kids in there too. Let's just.
No. No, they will destroy everything.
Hey, Anita, I have a degree in child development. So, yeah.
Okay, I'm bringing them over tomorrow. Kris, I just want to piggyback on what Mel said, that you were so mindful of helping somebody, and Mel has expressed that you helped her.
Aww.
And you've helped me, and I think that your episode will help a lot of people to hear just your perspective and your energy and your desire to cross the water and live again. So thank you so much.
One more question, and I know that you know what this question is because you are an avid listener. So here it comes. What is your favorite cheese?
Smoked Gouda. It just doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't. I wanted to be creative and find like this really wild cheese, rattlesnake cheese or something like that. But I was like, come on. Smoked Gouda. Who does not like Gouda? I'll do regular, but smoked.
Are you able to tell the difference between when they add smoke flavoring and when it's actually smoked?
I feel like you should, because you're from Texas, where they like barbecue and smoke things.
If it's smoked, I'll eat it. It doesn't matter whether it's artificially smoked or someone's smoking a cigarette and it's going in there. It's fine. Just smoke it. I love it. So no, I cannot tell the difference. But now I'm going to start looking for sure.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole new avenue. Cigarette smoke Gouda.
Oh gosh.
I don't think it's going to take off.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope everybody has enjoyed Kris and her story. Remember to check out the Widow Wives Club. If you're doing Facebook, if you're on a Facebook fast, that's also cool and good. Just make sure you answer all the questions if you're trying to join the Widow Wives Club. If you want to keep the podcast going, consider joining our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you want to buy us tacos, go to buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonownow.
And until we talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Kris.
We're two young widows and a Cocker Spaniel who was married to a Golden Retriever, and we're just trying to figure out what do we do now?
This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks, and so you don't have to pay extra for that, and you still get great service.
Yep, Anita and I have traveled all over, and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it, and my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.